Hi there, pleasant evening to you. Thank you for joining us. As you're quite aware that the debate has begun, and this is the largest ever budget presented by the government, $220 billion. And we would have seen quite a significant growth in the education sector. As you know by now, that the education sector was allotted the highest ever since the PPPC took office. And joining me this evening is the Honorable Minister of Education, Priya Manickchand. And tonight we'll be discussing the positive developments, some of the challenges the sector experienced, and how the sector will be further developed in the coming years. Minister, good evening to you.
Hi, good night to you and to all of Guyana too.
I know that you are in a very exciting sector. You would have moved your passion for development of people. You've moved from human services. Now you are in education, and very lucky. You're in a sector where you're able to nurture the young minds, the future leaders of our country. Let's take a flashback, 2013. What were some of the major challenges the sector experienced? How were you able to ride those challenges?
You know, you're right. I love being in education. I mean, I love being in any job that develops people. So anything that could help our population, particularly those that are most vulnerable, do better. So whether that's in law, when I was a lawyer, or in government, wherever it is, education is particularly interesting because, like you said, we get to determine how Guyana is going to look the next 20 years, the next 15 years, because this generation that we're molding now, they will take our country forward. They're going to be the people of those years. And so when you said that I am doing it, I am, but I'm doing it with an incredibly talented professional admin staff, and we're doing it in partnership with teachers and parents. We can talk a little bit more about how we need to strengthen those partnerships, but our teachers are driving the process every day. We have some challenges with those. But like you said, we are the best place we've ever been in education in the country, and that is indisputable. If you look at results, if you look at expenditure, if you look at the knowledge of our children, if you look at our techniques, if you look at our means of delivery, whichever area you want to look at, we are doing better than we have ever done before as a country.
Let's
But
start.
we have challenges. We have challenges that the rest of the world has. The entire world is doing badly in mathematics. We're doing badly in mathematics. The entire world is talking about quality in the classroom. We have issues with quality in the classroom. The entire world is talking about how we attract more children, girls particularly into the STEM subjects. We're talking about the same thing. So we have the same kinds of challenges that could be narrowed. I mean, when you're looking at it only from a perspective of Guyana, you can get very myopic and think that we have these insurmountable challenges. They're not insurmountable, one, and two, they are shared by countries across the world, peoples across the world.
Let's start. I love the fact that you've mentioned the vulnerable children. Let's start with the Harold Davis School for Differently Abled Children. Lots of money, and the Ptolemy Reed Center.
Right.
Lots of monies were injected into these two areas last year. Tell us about some of the developments. Are you pleased with the developments, and what will be done for these children? Because we heard the Honorable Valda Lawrence, APNU Member of Parliament, calling for more funds, more resources to be allocated for this particular vulnerable group.
Yeah.
Is
Well, you
this
know what? And for me, all children, simply because they're young and they're helpless and they are weaker because of their age, all children are vulnerable, and anything that is done to take away from them the best that they can get is a crime, in my view, against them. It is a horrific thing that anyone can do. And so we all have to join hands across the country, across the sectors, to make sure we do what we can to give them the best. Uh, Persons with special needs, particularly special needs in education, that's going to receive specific attention from us. We just spent a significant number of months traveling the country, talking to disabled people, talking to schools, talking to teachers, talking to parents, talking to other stakeholders about how we can meet the needs of children with special education needs. That was public, that's national, that was in the papers several times. We have formulated a plan. We're about to, assuming the budget is passed, implement that plan, and we want to do just that, provide more for the needs of our children with special needs. That is not going to be an easy task. Teachers are, we are looking at how we can train all our teachers to deal with special education needs. We're looking at how we can specifically cater for making sure children with special needs can enter the workforce. So more practical things. We're looking at how we can make the profession teaching in special schools attractive. We're looking at how we can partner with parents to make sure these children maximize all that the potential they have. So there are a series of things we're looking at. If you, as you may know, we just last September there was the School of the Blind. It was not good, conditions there were not good, but we went about finding funds to start another school, and we started that September gone, so that's a pleasant thing. We have appointed a special person to deal with education needs. We have a whole department. So for me, this is a hugely important
So we can
aspect.
see perhaps a reformation of the curriculum for
Well,
children who are
the
differently
thinking,
able.
the research in the world says that the best thing to do is to integrate children who have special needs into a regular classroom as far as that is possible. But what we have to do is to make sure the regular classrooms, the classrooms that have not before catered for children with special needs, and that's what I meant by regular, that those classrooms now can cater for these children with special needs. The research in the world says that the children with special needs, as well as the children who are not yet diagnosed or who don't have special needs, both benefit from that integration. So we're looking at how we can do that. The like I said, we are, how do we screen all of our children by the time they hit grade 1? How do we partner with the Ministry of Health to make sure we can diagnose and pick up and deal with, address issues like poor eyesight, lack of hearing before they become problematic? How do we have right now the ability to assist students at CXC or NGSE or any other exam with interpretation, or helping to write, or giving them more time, or creating exams specifically for them if they have issue depending on the disability that they suffer from. And we've been making that public. We've sent letters out to every single teacher, head teacher, over the last couple of months, saying please make sure you know this service exists and that you use it for any child that needs it. So there's a lot of work going on in that area. As a country, we have passed the Persons with Disabilities Act, and so every new building we build in the Ministry of Education, we're complying with that act, which says they have to have ramps and toilets, facilities, and so on that are friendly to the disabled. So those are things that are being done consciously for our children with special needs.
Brings me to another group, the children of the hinterland. And I just want to touch a little bit that was raised in Parliament, the Sand Creek Secondary School. There are claims that the school was not constructed properly, and I know that the ministry and you and your team, you're very persistent to ensure that the best is given to the children. How are we going to deal with this problem, and how do you plan to deal with this to prevent it not from happening again?
Right, and you spoke of some of the challenges, and that's why we cannot, in the Ministry of Education, cater for the needs of Guyanese children alone. It has to be a partnership. And one of the challenges that we have is that we have been getting some shoddy work. Not only Sand Creek is one example, but we have a couple of other examples. So what are we going to do to fix that? Because, we go publicly and we invite people to bid, and the lowest bidder who is responsive and meets all the criteria and so on, that's the person who wins the bid. And then there's a consultant, and we do the same public procurement process to get a consultant. And essentially, at that school, there was a contractor who was building, and there was a consultant who was telling us that it was going well. Of course, it appears now that the advice and the building was shoddy. The construction of the building and the advice that went along with it that allowed us to release payment, they were both less than acceptable. In fact, I have sent that file to the Attorney General so that we can be advised as to whether we can take action against these persons. So he has to go through the contracts and so on. How are we trying to fix that? Every single new building we make, infrastructurally, every single new building we build, and I'll come to you just now about the ones we're going to be building this year. We're going to be, every single new building, we go into the community. We invite all the parents, all the teachers, the entire community, the churches, the mosques, the NDC, the RDC, everybody, and we say, come, 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 come to this place. Here is the school we plan to build. This is the drawing. Here are the bills of quantities. This is how much stone you must use, how much sand, how much wood, how much nails, how much hammers, whatever. And we say to them, we want you to keep a close eye on what's happening. Because we can be on the ground every day. We can go to see that when the contractor said he was going to use 2 tons of stones, he used 1 3/4, so the building is weaker. And then the consultant and him collaborated, and the consultant didn't tell us. But if the community who will benefit from this school gets to watch this and they're fully informed, we hope that will help us get quality. And that is a new policy we've put in place. Every new building that's going up, we are going to go to the community. We leave with the community all the documents that are necessary. We post it publicly at the site. We post it at the NDC office. We leave it with the chair and the regional office. We leave it with the PTA. We leave it with the school. So because most of these places have schools existing already. If we go in, wherever we go, we leave it with the leaders of that community. Several copies. This year, we are going to be doing a lot of extension, particularly because we're bringing in, we want to reach a place where we've reached universal secondary education. Let me explain that. Right now, we've met a Millennium Development Goal, which says that all children of primary age across the world need to be in a classroom learning. And Guyana has met that development goal. So everywhere in Guyana, wherever a child is, they can access a primary school if they're of the primary school age. We still have a problem with making sure we have 100% enrollment and attendance. So 100% attendance, 100% enrollment. But the fact is that wherever a child lives in Guyana, they can access a primary education. We want to do the same thing for secondary. That the child, every secondary age child could access a general secondary education. This year's budget caters for us to expand in very many regions to be able to bring us closer as a country to achieving universal secondary education. I'm very excited about some of the things, some of the provisions that have been made, and we've made these provisions, or we made these applications to the Ministry of Finance, who have granted them and made the provisions in the budget very, very carefully after a lot of consultation with all the peoples in the regions and so on, all the communities and so. So let's take Region 1. Region 1 is going to get new transportation, because some regions don't need schools, especially the hinterland outlying regions. They need transportation, to take the children to school. So Region 1, I think we have a couple of boats and engines for Region 1. Region 2 has pretty much presently they have universal secondary. Yeah, they're doing very well. They need about eight classrooms or so more, which we'll expand over the next couple of years. Region 3 is very important. Region 3, there was a school called St. John's in Region 3, whose foundation is very old, and the structure was problematic, and I was worried that children would get hurt. So we removed the children, and they're in a community center, not a conducive place for school, but the best that we could have done. And then Zeeburg Secondary, you saw that in the papers. There were some structural problems too. I think there was exposure to the salty air and so on. And so this year's budget provides for us to build a brand new secondary school over there that would take care of both children from both schools, St. John's as well as Zeeburg. Region 5, we're expanding places like Woodley Park and Maikoni Secondary. Region 5, with this year's budgetary allocation, should have, at the end of the year, universal secondary education. Region 6, same thing, we're expanding certain schools like Tutorial Academy and so on to bring in universal secondary education. Region 10 pretty much has it. We have to look at some issues about how teachers can get into the riverine areas. So once this budget is passed, Region 9, like you said, we're trying to fix Sand Creek. We're extending the Madhya Secondary School to cater for more children. So all across the country, there's development going on, and that is what the PPP Civic is very good with, very remarkable for, that there's equitable development across the country. So, but the budget has to pass. If the budget doesn't
I know you're
pass,
very passionate about allowing children to have their rights because we are signatory to UNICEF Convention on the Rights of the Child.
but not only because we're signatories, but because we learn from them when we hear. We hear what would meet their needs, and then we match it with what our experience says is good and our research says is good, and we get a really good combination of what works.
How embracing is this year's policy in terms of establishment or strengthening student governments in the school system?
It's something we're working very hard at. We started talking earlier about partnerships. It is very important that we have parents fully involved in their children's lives. If you look at the students who do very well, they're not necessarily wealthy, very rich, or very worldly, but they're children who have parents who stick by their side, who get to put them in the evenings and study, who make sure their meals on the table, not fancy meals, but meals, who make sure they go to the PTA meetings. These are the parents, these are the children who are doing well. And we do need that kind of partnership if our children are to dream and be all they can be. The Ministry of Education alone cannot do it. We have to get the partnership with parents and teachers. And the we have seen more involvement, but still not as much as we would like to see. We just did a research, a very small, limited research, about what children know when they come into nursery school. So this is before the ministry has them, before their informal education. And it is startling that only 30% of the children know what they should know. So things like shapes and basic colors, they don't yet know that. And that may very well be not because parents aren't interested, but because one, they don't know what their children need to know, and they don't know how to use their environment to teach that. So a parent, I did not know my child needed to know what her birth date was. So maybe we've fallen down on that at the Ministry of Education. So we have to tell parents what are the things you need to do, and you can help your child, and here is how you can use your own home, your own situation. We don't have to go buy charts. You can tell you can teach your children green by saying, there's the green grass, the green trees, the blue sky. So you can use what's
There are
around
concepts
you.
within the
Bring the red
environment.
bucket. Here's mommy's orange dress. You can teach, but parents may not know what the children need to know, and that's our fault, and how to use their environment to teach it. So we are trying very hard. This year will see us interacting a lot more with the population, adult and children population. So you'll see us, we're on Facebook, where we can reach masses, the people who are on Facebook. We're going into communities a lot more. We are going to be talking to parents through any means we have. We have a new website we're about to launch, and that is going to have not only all our policies online and textbooks and papers and so on, but it's going to have past papers, past exam papers. We want it to be interactive. We want, it's going to have interactive tests. So you do a test and then we send back to you your results.
Very interesting.
All across the primary grades for now. We're going to get to secondary show, over the year. And then we are going to have a chat where the Minister of Education and our senior officers are going to sit down every Thursday night from 7:30 to 9 and talk to the entire population, whoever wants to talk to us, on specific issues. So we can talk about corporal punishment, we can talk about buildings, we can talk about teachers, we can deal with these challenges that we have together.
How
and
do you
hear
plan,
from everyone.
How do you plan to use the medium of the learning channel more?
That's just it. The learning channel is going to be able to tell parents, just like I said just now, we may not have been telling parents all that they could be doing with their children. So we have to look at the learning channel to make sure. I think it's done great work so far. Incredible work. In fact, the Guyana stands proudly as the only country in the Caribbean who has a learning channel dedicated to teaching and learning. And it's led by Dr. Sita Roth, and she's excellent with programming and so on. But wherever you are, whatever we do, there's always room for improvement. And so we have to look at timing of programs and how we can make things more relevant to Guyana, not relevant. There are things that are relevant, but how we could make programming a little bit more local. So we're looking at some of these things right now
Positive
as we speak.
development for the University of Guyana. Tell us more about that.
University of Guyana. The University of Guyana has these like a really nice project going on right now where all of the, I think it's about 17 different curricula are going to be reformed, reviewed and reformed if necessary. We are looking at and rehabilitating 14 of the buildings that house the technology STEM courses, science and technology. We are allowing for paying for have grants for Forte research to be done in areas that are relevant to Guyana and our leadership in climate change and so on. Then we have the university is going to be having online courses. Hopefully that
Are
comes
these
on board this year.
undergraduate courses or would be postgrad
There
courses?
would be a series of different, I think they're finalizing that now. The university is led by a council, it's governed by a council, and that council is determined by law. So the Ministry of Education, the government has the pleasure of providing the finances for most of these things, but we don't have direct control over what happens in the University of Guyana. Of course, the leadership is needed because, you know, if you don't have proper leadership, then you don't get these grants and so on to do these things. So a lot of work is being done in the ministry. We want to do this year, begin a hinterland education improvement project where we are going to be looking at every single hinterland region and area, sub-regions, areas within the region to see what are the gaps. So we have schools. Do we have enough teachers? Do we have enough trained teachers? If we don't, are we catering for the teachers to come in? Do we have housing for them? And then how do we make sure that over the next few years, this village could produce children who are qualified and eligible for training as teachers? We want to have an in-depth look at that. That's something we're going to begin. Again, we need the budget to pass before we can do that. We need people who care about the hinterland people to make sure that they don't cut that budget. So that we can bring and deliver these things, because you could say what you want. These things cannot be delivered without money. They have to have money. They have to have a vision first, a desire to see this change, and then funding to make sure it happens.
You've mentioned a very important point here, building capacity development. Our country is poised for massive development. Technical vacation has been big on the agenda for the government and the partnership between the private and public sector. How is that working quickly?
TechVoc education is recognized now globally to be something that is absolutely necessary for it to cater for the emerging economies that are going to be coming up around the world. We have more than 3,000 students who are enjoying and benefiting from the very many institutions we have. We've just built two multi-billion-dollar, million-dollar institutions at Lenora, at Maikoni. So we have in regions 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 10. We have institutions, TechVoc institutions, where our young people can go in and leave with a skill, leave with many skills, competent in many skills. We're presently working on making sure they not only leave with the skills, but they leave with certification that they are skilled. And we want that certification to be relevant not only to Guyana nationally, but to the Caribbean, so that you could go and work through the CSME in any one of the Caribbean countries. We have a 5-year plan for TechVoc. Actually, it goes to 2020. This is more than 5 years. And we're looking at how we can, we're pursuing implementation of that plan. And in that plan has how do we match the requirements that the courses we have to what the market needs, to what the private sector needs. How do we make sure we can help a little bit more with just not making these students competent, but making them helping them with employment? How do we partner with the private sector for that? How do we match the needs of the country? How do we make sure we're prepared for when we find oil? How do we make sure that we are prepared for servicing the new economies that are going to come come up or that exist right now and need bolstering.
There has
Those are
been
some of
call,
the.
quickly, there has been call by the Honorable Sidney Alicock of APNU for the construction of the Letem Technical Institute. Anywhere in the pipeline?
Of course, we said that already. He knows that. In fact, I think it may actually be in the manifesto of the People's Progressive Party Civic. It is something that is being looked at. Now, let me tell you something. He also called Mr. Alicock for schools in every village. It's not, if we had all the money in the world, it is not prudent, it is not best practice to start a high school in every village. It is not, um, it would not be good for the children. And when we are doing stuff, we have to do what is in the best interest of those children. And so if you look, just Google it. He could do that. Just Google it and check it. You don't start a school with under 250 children. You just don't, because the environment would not be conducive for them learning. You won't have the same kinds of facilities. So the TechVoc Institute in Letem is something that is in the pipeline. I started off that to say that you don't just move in and build something. You have to do something, because we could do that and make a great screaming headline and then it doesn't serve the people there properly. So we have to do it sensibly, and there is an undertaking right now within the Ministry of Education through the TechVoc department, led by, we have an Assistant Chief Education Officer for Technical Vocational Education, and they are looking at how we can provide TechVoc education to Region 9. So that, not only Region 9, but how we expand what we presently have. And so, yeah, that we're looking at that right now. Again, we need the budget to support it.
Talking about the budget, we need the budget. It's very important for you to make your presentation in the National
Well,
Assembly.
before we go there, let me just say this. The budget, it's important for me, the budget at the ministry, for the Ministry of Education to be passed. So it's important for us to be able to give every child a meal from nursery to grade 2, which is what we do, a snack or a meal. It is important for us to be able to help parents to put their children's uniform together by giving a uniform grant, to help parents to send their children to school. We have this new initiative that where we're giving each child $10,000, each child. So if you have 4 children, that's $40,000. And that is to help you equip your child for school, whether it's school clothes, whether it's transportation, whether it's to help you with meals. So not cutting the education budget would be great, because we would get these things, but not to cut the education budget. So to give us all the money we ask for in education, but to cut the Gaisuko's budget, the 6 billion intended for Gaisuko, means that you give us the ability to feed these children, but you take away from their parents the ability to help them, to give them the other 2 meals. Because where you have workers at Gaisuko, all those 120,000 families will be affected if we don't give, if they cut the Gaisuko budget. And we've heard that very clearly from the opposition. Ramjatan loves to use his scissors hand. He said clearly the other day they're going to cut it. If you take away from all the workers of Gaisuko the ability to feed their children, the ability to support them, then you're taking away from them the ability to educate their children properly, because the education budget alone is not going to be able to work to do what we want to do at the Ministry of Education and as a country, to equip those children for a good life. So it's very important that we pass it. You know, if we ever had any doubt about whether investing in education works, then we really only need to look at the statistics. The PPP Civic has always been very, very firm that investing in people through the social sectors is an investment in our country, and it has shown. This year's budget, 40% of this budget, the national budget, the whole budget is going to be spent on the social sector. That is, I think, 13% is going to be spent on education alone. In 1992, we had 5% of the national budget, a much smaller budget, but we're not talking about a nominal value. Let's talk percentage here. They thought educating the country's children was only worth 5% of the budget. Last year, 15.9% of the national budget was spent on education. Now let's look from 92 to 2013. What are the results? In 92, we were getting results like 8% pass in math. I think it was 18% in English. In 2013, we got 45% of our children passed English. So you see that development. And if you look for the last 5 years, in 1992, when we had 5% of the nation's resources being spent on education. We had, I think, 30% trained teachers, a little bit more. In 2013, 70% of our teachers are trained. The more children are more likely to get a better education, better teaching, able to learn better if we have a trained teacher in front of that classroom. And so putting money into the education sector has always been important for the PPP Civic, and it has shown results.
Finally, Minister, as we wrap up, last Friday, that's yesterday, April 4, we had a very unfortunate incident in the National Assembly where you were not able to make your presentation. The Assembly has been adjourned until Monday. Do you have any optimism that you'll be able to make that presentation?
Well, look, this thing is just a very unfortunate incident that is being used by the opposition, I believe, to stop the budget's process. What happened is I made a heckle in relation to a matter that an opposition member was speaking of. Let me just say for the people of Guyana, heckles happen a dozen a minute in the National Assembly. So on any given sitting, you'd have more than 100 heckles, most of the times coming from the opposition benches. So this is not something that is abnormal. There was nothing wrong about heckling. That resulted in some other issues. The speaker asked me to apologize. I didn't think there was anything to apologize for, as well as the fact that I thought apologizing would really compromise my own principles on a particular issue, rape of children, to be specific. The speaker since ruled that, commendably, that he was mistaken when he misinterpreted my heckle, and he lifted the ban that was placed on me, and so I was allowed to speak. Now, this didn't happen. All of this happened. I said something, then we met with the speaker, Mr. Shearer, the speaker, on behalf of the APNU, Mr. Herman, and myself, and we agreed with what I would say, so that the ban could be lifted. And we kept our end of the deal. I said that. The ban was lifted. The speaker did what he was supposed to do. And now the APNU is reneging on that arrangement, which is just really an unfortunate exhibition of how not to trust people, of how untrustworthy they are. What is essentially happening here, I have said very clearly that I was not referring to their MP when I made that, their sitting MP when I made that comment. I said that from the floor. I have said that in public posts and other publications that are public, that I was not referring to their MP, and I say that again, I was not referring to their MP. So what really is the problem here? There really is no problem. There should have been no problem last night. There were no problems over the last 2 days. The MP has since resigned because of his issues with APNU, not because of anything to do with us. And APNU now needs to, I don't know what they need to do, but there are a couple of things.
Is there going to be a compromise?
I don't know. I don't know if there's going to be a compromise, because if I am willing to compromise, of course I am. We said, in fact, my getting up and saying what I said, I think it was on Thursday or Wednesday, was indeed a compromise. I didn't see that there was anything I needed to apologize for, but I said I was sorry that I disrupted the House, and I really was, because, heckles have never been given that much importance before. So I didn't think mine would have been given that kind of importance. And I was justified in thinking that because of the history of the parliament and other parliaments around the world. So is there going to be a compromise? We are willing always to do what we have to do to make sure that Guyana gets to run smoothly. But compromise means 2 or more persons meeting each other to resolve an issue. And so it's really in APNU's court. It's in their court whether the nation gets to hear through the National Assembly, because the nation is going to hear what is in store for them through the Ministry of Education's allocation. Whether the nation hears that through the National Assembly is in the APNU's court. Let's see. It's going to be interesting. Let's see if they want to derail the budget and is using this as something, this non-issue in my view, as a reason not to let Guyana hear how much is in store for them, how much we need to partner, how much we need to work to give our children the best that they can get.
Minister,
Monday coming, I hope we get to speak on these issues, and we get to kind of sound out how we're going to go forward. We have done well, but there are other things we can do. There are fine tuned, there are things that we can revise that we have been doing. We're about to embark on a new 5 year plan. We want the cooperation of the APNU members and the AFC, not only the sitting members of parliament, but they have supporters who are extremely experienced in some of these areas and can really contribute towards us having a better and more improved education system. So I'm really looking forward to being able to speak on these issues on Monday.
Minister, I take this opportunity to wish you and your team and all of Guyana the best. We trust that compromise will be the key here as we decide the country's future, to move the country's development. We have witnessed unprecedented growth. The young people are our future, and we indeed need to invest. Congratulations on the ministry's achievement. We look forward to the wonderful developments that will come in the future.
Well, thank you. Have a great Sunday.
And we take this opportunity to share with you what transpired yesterday, April 4, in the National Assembly.
Thank you, Honourable Member. Honourable Member Ms. Priya Manickchand.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. May it please Your Honor, I am extremely pleased to join with my colleagues in the House from both sides.
Honourable Members, order. Order, Honourable Members. Order, order. Order.
Well, that was an excerpt from Parliament, April 4, 2014. And I think that was just the final presentation and Minister Manichand's attempt to present in the National Assembly the plan for the Ministry of Education for 2014. We trust that good faith will prevail on Monday when the National Assembly adjourns. Minister will be able to have completed her presentation, and we prepare on Wednesday for the debates on the estimates. Thank you for joining us, and remember, we continue with more on parliamentary coverage right here on NCN. Thank you. Good evening.